Hi everyone and welcome to this training about Exchange Online Protection. My name is Fulvio Salanitro, I'm a Partner Services Account Manager, and here with us we have Rogier Honselaar.
Thank you, Fulvio, for inviting me.
We are so happy to have you here for this training, Roger. So, today, as we said, we will talk about Exchange Online Protection, and in particular we will talk about these topics, the topics in front of you. So we will cover a short introduction about the product, so Exchange Online Protection. Then we will talk about the anti-spam, the anti-malware, some information about management and reporting. And in the last part of the training, we will talk also about some common issues and suggestions about how to use the product and how to solve the most common issues with the suite. So let's start with the introduction about Exchange Online Protection. Before starting, I have a simple and easy question for you. Roger, do you know how many messages are filtered by our anti-spam, anti-malware engine, so Exchange Online Protection, every day?
So I know our data centers are scanning a lot of messages, but I don't know the exact number.
Well, as you can imagine, or as you can guess, the number of messages that we are filtering, it's really a big number. So 1 billion of messages per day are filtered by our Exchange Online Protection architecture.
That's
so
a lot.
It's a lot. So imagine that every single message will pass through anti-spam, antivirus, and all the possible checks that Microsoft and the customer defined in the Exchange Online architecture. So it's a lot.
It's really a lot.
It's really a lot. Yeah. Today we will talk about, as we said, Exchange Online Protection. So we will have an introduction about this new product.
Just a second, I thought that this was called FOPI.
Yeah, as you know, in the past, we had a different suite, a different product that was called Forefront Online Protection for Exchange. This is because Microsoft, in something like 10 years ago, so in 2005, bought FOPI from a different company that was called the FrontBridge. But the problem was that Microsoft bought that solution from FrontBridge and put FOPI just in front of BPOS in the real beginning, and then in front of the previous version of Office 365. So was a solution that was acquired by Microsoft a few years ago and just put in front of our architecture.
Okay, and at this point we integrated it really
Perfect.
into the product.
So
okay, nice.
What we tried to do and to achieve is to merge the two technologies, so Exchange and the protection of Exchange, in a single technology. That's why we created the Exchange Online Protection that now has been created and built from the same team that is working on Exchange Online. So the same team worked on the two technologies that are serving emails and also protecting the architecture.
Okay.
This is something important because you need to manage everything from a single, let's say, panel, from a single menu. What Exchange Online will provide to our customer? Exchange Online will provide, let's say, antivirus, anti-spam. This is really important to protect our architecture. And it will also provide a single admin console to administer the whole environment. So from the very same Exchange Online admin panel and console, you are able to administer Exchange, so mail flow, mail routing, mailboxes, and so on, but also the protection. So as we said, malware, antivirus, and also some rules that will help you and will help your customers to work with Exchange Online and Office 365. Well, let's start talking about the first topic. The first topic will be the anti-spam. Roger, do you would like to tell us something about the anti-spam feature provided by Exchange Online Protection?
I'm really happy to, so that's why I'm here. So within the anti-spam protection, we have multiple layers that we do to protect the messages. So the first one is the connection filtering. And with the connection filtering, we are able to block up to 80% of the spam already at the gateway.
This is already a lot. So in the real beginning, we are stopping almost everything.
So yeah, it's 80%. So it's really a lot of this, of all the spam that comes in within the Microsoft data center. So the second, one of the second filters is the sender recipient filtering, and with this we can block around 15% of the messages used on Microsoft internal list and the sender reputation. So the last 5% of spam that we block is based on the content filtering.
Okay.
So really looking inside the message, so what the content looks like, and is this spam message, yes or no.
Okay.
So if we look more granular to the anti-spam filtering controls, we can say that with the connection filtering, Microsoft uses a long list with all the IPs that we allow or block. And so with that, we are able to block these 80%.
Oh, okay. This means that eventually Microsoft is providing a list of some IP addresses that should be blocked because they are providing malware, spam, and so on. But is it possible for the end customer to define a list of some IPs that he wants to permit or block? Is it something possible?
That's possible. So as a customer, I have the option to create my own IP block and allow list, which opt into the Microsoft maintain list. So this means that if, for example, one of the IP addresses of my customers is coming on the of the list of Microsoft, I as in my tenant, I can add this IP address to the allow list, which means that it will go around the Microsoft blocking.
So actually, the two systems are working together. So Microsoft block list is working with the customer block list, and they are working together to block or to allow the mail flow between inside and outside the system. So one system is not overlapping or replacing the other.
No. So it's more like Microsoft is providing the basic, and as a customer, I can define a bit, fine-tune exactly. Yeah. So the second filtering we saw is the content filtering. So what we do here is we look into the message and give the message a specific rating. So this rating can go from 1 to 9, and it's called the spam confidence level. So if a message, for example, gets a rating of 9, we can be sure that this is a high confidently spam message. This is how the filter works.
May I, as a customer, define my personal spam rating? So I can decide that a specific kind of communication is 9 and another kind of communication is 2. May I change this rating, or is something?
Not exactly like that. So the filtering is coming from Microsoft, but as we saw in the connection filtering, we can fine tune. So I will show you in the demo what we can do. What we definitely can do is decide on the actions, what happens. So for example, if a message gets the rating of 8 and 9, I don't want this message to go into the inbox of the user. So I can decide on the specific rules I can to delete this message at the gateway already.
So I'm not able to define the rating, but I can decide, for example, that if some of my messages are rated as 9, for example, I can, for example, decide to allow this messaging to go through my mailbox. Because it's up to me.
Yeah. So the administrator can decide for the organization what happens with this specific rated message.
Perfect. Makes totally sense. Thank you for that.
So shall we just look into the portal and go for a demo?
Sure.
So we are now in the Office 365 administration console, and I will go to the Exchange administration panel right now. And from here, on the left-hand side, you can see the protection option. And this is where we can configure some of the points of Exchange Online Protection. So we will look at the content filtering, connection filtering we talked about. So as you can see, the connection filtering here, if I just double-click on the default settings, you can see that I'm able to add the allow and the block list as we talked about.
This is where the customer can define a whitelist and blacklist.
Yeah, exactly. So just clicking on the plus, I can just add specific email addresses. I know that I want to allow in this case. Maybe this is the email address of my specific customer. Okay, this is not a valid email address, so I should have known that. And this then will opt into the Microsoft block list that we already have. The same is for the IP block list, of course. So in this case, we have the personal allow and block list that we can
So for
configure.
example, if there is an IP address that is spamming against your Exchange Online protection, your Exchange Online organization, you can block that specific IP address using this specific.
By adding it here on the block list.
Easy, just a matter of few seconds.
Exactly. So the second part we talked about is the content filter, and if we look into the default settings, then you can see I can define the actions that we talked about. So for any spam messages, I can say move the message to the junk mail folder, or I can just delete the message if, as we talked about. And the same for high confidential spam, so messages that are probably have a high risk of being spam, we can take the action on it.
Okay.
So a new point we have here is the international spam. So what I can do here, I can create a filter based on the language that the message is coming from. Yeah, we can take every example that we have, but let's take maybe
let's say
Dutch or whatever.
Okay.
So in this case, this means that if a message comes in to our filter and it has the Dutch language in it, we will be more detailed on to see if this message is spam or not with this Dutch language.
This is particularly useful if you want to prevent some massive spam attack from particular countries, for example. So let's say that your company is against another company that is located in a specific country. You can block all the messages that are coming from that specific country and that are rated as spam, for example.
Yeah, so there are just two points just to fill you. So one is really the language of the message, and the second one is the country where the message is originating coming from. So this is where we can define.
So I can define the language, but also the country. So
exactly.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because maybe, for example, I can send a message in Dutch, as you said, but the original location of the mail server, because it's been maybe hacked or something like that, is located, for example, in China.
Yeah.
Just
of course.
For example.
Yeah. So last point to maybe look at is also the quarantine. So what you see here is this is all the messages that are blocked that are listed here, and the administrator can then give this message free if needed. So we will talk a little bit about this in a second, but I just want to show you where you can configure this.
Perfect. So as an administrator, I can always go here and see if a specific message that one of my users is waiting is in this list. Yeah. So I can eventually free up that message and have that message flow up to the my customer, my user mailbox.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Exactly. So before I forget, I just want to show you one last thing. Is that we have been talking about the option for the customer to tweak the bits. So let's go back to the Office 365 admin panel and see at the service settings.
Okay.
So. And as you can see here, I also have, for example, the option to control the mail flow. Okay. So I can create custom mail rules. And just adding I will just add a rule here, and then you can see it's just like creating a new Outlook rule in my inbox.
But just to understand if I'm understanding you in the right way, these are more or less the hub transport rules that you have in an on-premise Exchange server. So I can define what to do with a specific message, how to handle it, but for the whole organization. Is it correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So let us just have a look at creating a new rule. And as you can see here, just give it a name. I'll just call it test for our demo here. And this is the what. So when does this rule apply? So on what's the condition? Okay. So in this case, let's talk about the sender. So I can just go into my list. It could be any contacts or whatever, and I can say, okay, if a message comes from this sender, I want to apply this rule.
Okay.
So the next action is the action what I want to do with the rule.
What action will be performed?
Exactly. Yeah. So in this case, we do the following. We, for example, forward this message to approval.
Okay.
So this means that maybe we want to forward this message to the manager first before sending it out.
May happen.
So this can be a good idea if I'm sending contracts to a customer, just to making sure that the contract is checked first before I send it out.
May happen for sure.
So I'll just add the user.
Please remember always to click on the add button, because if not, just selecting the name is not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and then what I can do, I can define some exceptions. So what are really, what is the exception on this specific rule? So I click on more options, and you can see, for example, that I can configure this rule for a specific date.
So could be interesting. Let's say that in my organization, I'm not creating an inbound rule, but an outbound rule. So messages that are going out from organization. I could create a rule like this one, for example, for MP3 files. So I can define, for example, that in my organization, I'm planning to block all the communication outside my my company, and I don't want to permit that MP3 files are sent out by my organization. And I can define also a time frame. So between Monday to Friday is not possible, but during the weekend this is possible. Yeah. Correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, this is pretty useful. But Roger, just to understand and to think about some other potential usage of these rules, may I create also an outbound rule to add a signature to my mail messages, for example?
Yeah, that's possible. Let me see if we can just show you that. I click a new rule, and we can add a disclaimer here, for example. So we have signatures and we have disclaimers. We can here add a disclaimer on it. So that's quite easy. And the cool thing with the signature is I can use really how do you say that? Custom rules. Okay. It will also take the name of the sender. Oh. It will use his phone number, just based on
parameters.
Some parameters. Yeah, looking from the Active Directory, for example, in Office 365, and these parameters then will apply on the signature.
To provide a more professional look and feel to these mail messages. Fantastic. So we learned that it's possible to define incoming and messages that are sent out from my organization, and I can define a set of rules and actions that will manage the mail flow in the end.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Okay. So let's go back to the slides for a moment now.
Yes, just a second.
And talk about the junk mail management. So our recommendation is that you move all the suspected spam messages to the junk mail folder in Outlook, just to make sure that every user can decide, look themselves, and decide if this message is really junk or not. So it might be good to do that for the first couple of months, and after that fine-tune maybe the junk mail options within the portal.
It's the best option, so it's up to the end user to decide what is for real a junk mail for him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
So talking about the quarantine a bit, like we saw in the demo already. So the quarantine at the moment is just can be shown by the administrator.
Okay.
So the administrator can look to the list and see if the message is spam or not, and maybe release the message for the user to if needed.
Okay, so if I'm an end user for the moment, I'm not able to access to a specific quarantine related to my specific mailbox, but I need to contact my administrator for the moment.
At the moment, yes. So we are working on a new feature that will, on a scheduled base, send the end user a list, a quarantine list, so the user can free up these junk mail messages himself.
So something similar to the picture in the slide in front of you in this moment. So if you remember, something similar was available in the past with BPOS. So in the real beginning, when we started with online services in BPOS, there was a message like this one that was sent out to all the users inside an organization with all the messages that were moved to the junk mail system, and the end user was able to have a look to these messages and release these messages to the inbox. So this was previously available with BPOS. We removed that option in Office 365 Wave 14, and we are thinking to reintroduce this feature in this new version now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. It's totally useful also to remove some additional workload, some additional task to the administrator.
Exactly. Yeah.
So self-done.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so to be able to help Microsoft on the spam filtering optimization, we have implemented an Outlook add-in that you can install. And what you can do with this add-in is that you are able to report the let me put this in an example. So I receive a message in my inbox, and I see this is not a normal message, it's just a spam message.
So pass it through the 80%, the 15%, and the 5%. So
exactly, that can happen. So what I'm able to do now is I can just right-click on the message, I go to junk, and I just report this message as junk folder. Okay. So this message then will be sent to Microsoft, and we will implement this this into our filtering system.
So end customers, if they are willing, they can contribute to improve our anti-spam system. If
exactly.
They want to. Fantastic.
So sometimes we have situations where I'm not using Outlook maybe, or I can also send this specific message to the email address that is listed here, abuse@messaging.microsoft.com, and it will have the same function as the reporting the junk mail in Outlook.
So if I don't use Outlook, for example, I'm using OWA for example, I cannot install this specific tool or add-in to have this new capability. So if I have OWA, I'm just able to send an email forward, let's say, this message to a specific address that is in front of you in this moment, and Microsoft will try to understand that this new message that is forwarded to abuse@messaging.microsoft.com is a potential spam.
Yeah,
correct?
it's just really important that you send it as an attachment. So we have the whole message with all the header information.
Okay, so I don't need to customize it, tweak it, no, the original one.
Just send the message as an attachment to this email address.
Okay, so we talk about reporting spam, but what about I'm waiting for a message and instead the Exchange Online Protection System rated a specific message as spam or junk, but was a real message, an important message for me. There is any way to report also that one?
Yeah, this is what we call false positive. So it of course can also happen the other way around, that the message is marked as a junk mail, but it's not junk mail.
Okay.
So it can possibly be found in your junk mail folder, and you can release it from there or in the quarantine. And what you can do then is send this specific message to the second email address on this slide, so false_positive@messaging.microsoft.com, and then we also will implement this in our filtering system, just to make sure that this hopefully doesn't happen again.
Fantastic. So this is something that the end user can do without involving the administrator. So I'm an end user, I want to report something to Microsoft, something that I want to report that is correct or incorrect. I can just do that using a simple email address, two different email addresses.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Really, really interesting.
So just when you report a message using the Outlook tool, you will just get a small pop-up that explaining what's happening, and you have to confirm that.
Perfect. So normal, just to double check that you are not reporting something just for error.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Oh, what a big schema we have here. What is it about?
So let me show you a bit about the inbound filtering flow which we have. If one of these 1 billion messages come into our data center, this is what happens in our at the gateway. Here at the bottom, you can see that we have the Exchange Online Protection Network, and on the left top-hand side, this is the message that comes into our organization.
So an external user, for example.
From an external user sends a message. So the message is routed, as we know, based on MX records, which point to the Microsoft data center.
Okay.
So if my company is called, like in our demo, contoso.com, it will be sent to contoso-com.mail.protection.outlook.com.
Okay, but this is a new record here, because in the past with FOPI the record was slightly different.
Yeah, so this is different because we sent the message not to the FOPI environment anymore, but to Exchange Online Protection.
Yeah, this is normal. So we are pointing to a different data center now.
Yeah, so we're also not pointing to a general address anymore, but more to a specific address for my company. So with that, we are more granular, able to control the filtering.
Also for the reporting, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
So so the message touches our data center, and the first thing that we will do is we'll do the look at the IP allow and block list. So the Microsoft one, and of course also the one that the customer.
The one that you showed before in the demo. So blocked and blacklisted IPs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect.
So the second filtering that is done is the envelope filtering. So we look at the recipient and the sender. If this is our allowed recipient and allowed senders to send into the organization. And the second one is the virus scanning.
Wow, this is interesting. I see multiple antivirus engines.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So it means that we have at least 5 virus engines running on our data center, and 3 of them are always active for a message. So
you say the 5 antivirus engines, we are using 3. Why we are using so many antivirus engines?
So it sometimes can happen that one antivirus engine does have the
latest.
Doesn't have the latest list of viruses, so then we make sure that the message goes through one of the other engines to make sure that this other engine maybe has this list already, so it will still recognize this.
So you are telling me that in the end we are using multiple antivirus engine to be sure that the final message, the original message, is passing through different vendor. So we are sure that, for example, if the first vendor had an issue in updating the virus engine, for example, the antivirus definition, and so on, we are sure that we have at least 2 additional engines that are still analyzing the message for potential issues, for potential risk.
Yeah,
Is it
exactly.
Correct.
So,
fantastic.
So if this, the message go through the virus scanning, it will go through the policy enforcement, and this is the custom rules that I showed you.
Okay, so if the message is coming from, do this action. If this message is sent to, do this other action, and so on. So the signature side thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So and after that, the message goes through the spam protection, and this is where we check on the safe and sender recipient, which you can put into Outlook. You receive a message and say, okay, this message is in my contact, so it's a safe sender, for example. We will do the content scanning and heuristics. We check on the SPF and sender ID filter.
SPF, I remember that name. Why is so important, SPF?
So with SPF, we check this. It's called the Sender Protection Framework, if I'm correct.
Policy framework.
Sorry, Sender Policy Framework. And what we do with that is we just check if the sender is really the email is really coming from the server that it says it comes from.
So I'm presenting me as contoso.com, and I should be authorized as a mail server to send out email messaging for contoso.com. This is why it's so important.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and within our Office 365, it's really important that you also register this SPF record in your DNS.
Yeah, I remember something that is something inside our DNS that we need to change with MX record, SPF. There is any other record that is important for FOPI in Office 365? I don't think so.
No, that's the two that are important.
Okay.
Yeah. So the next filtering we look at is the bulk mail filtering and the international spam that I showed you. So based on country and on language, and then the advanced spam messaging management. So and after that, if the message goes through that, it will be sent to the mailbox of the user.
So we reach the destination.
Yeah, the original destination.
Okay, and this is the inbound filter. This means messages that are coming from the outside the organization.
Yeah,
so we learned that the message needs to flow between many architecture and many protection systems to reach the final destination. So Exchange Online protection, antivirus, anti-spam, and all the rules that we defined in the portal.
Yeah,
in the end, this is the situation.
Yeah.
And for outbound, what happened?
So for outbound, I would like to show you here. So you see the corporate network, that is the mailbox of the user who is sending the message outside of the Office 365 data center. And we actually do the same. So we scan the message of a virus, so with the same engines that we use for the inbound filtering, just to be sure that we don't send any viruses outside the data center.
We don't want virus, but we want to prevent also that viruses are sent out by our organization.
Exactly. So we have the policy enforcement again. We talked about that.
Yeah.
And then we have the spam protection. So we don't check on all rules, the same like the inbound, but on most of them. And to see if this message is a spam, because it can happen that somebody catches a virus on his machine and is just spamming out from his machine without him knowing, for example.
May happen also that the mail account has been hacked, for example, by someone, and now is using that specific email address to send out the spam, virus, and so on. Yeah. It's common now.
So what we do with the scores that these messages get from the spam filtering. So as you can remember, we give messages a specific score, how high the risk is that this message is spam. So and based on this score, we decide if we send the message to the normal outbound pool, to the bulk delivery pool, or the high risk delivery pool.
The three color on the slide, so green, yellow, and red. Orange.
So what we want to, the result of that is that we are just able to always send all the messages that are not marked as spam to the normal outbound queue, and to make sure that this queue is not coming on to any blacklist, for example.
No risk. We are sure that the IP address pool is perfect.
It's perfect, yeah. So the other two pools are other pools, and they are sent to more. So there's a high risk. So this is not high priority. So we'll send the message out, but not with a high priority at that point. So
I understand that this means that it's not a total risk. Let's say that more or less can be, but we are not sure that there will be spam, will be something like that. But it's something that may happen in the end.
So and for example, if you look at the high risk delivery pool, we just make sure that this pool doesn't have this pool doesn't block all the messages that are not marked as spam.
Okay. So we in the end we use different IP addresses pool to route the messaging based on the internal score that we are using to classify all the messages. So if you are sure that that message will not be spam for sure, we will use a common IP address. Instead, if there is a risk that one of the messages that we are sending out is spam or something similar, can be blocked or can be included in a spam list system, we will use a different IP address pool to be sure that we are. Is it possible that that IP address pool will end up in a spam list?
Yeah.
Okay.
For example.
Makes sense. Makes totally sense. So I'll talk about anti-malware instead.
Yeah. Show us a bit.
Perfect. As we said before, we have different options to manage how a malware will be handled by the Exchange Online Protection System. So, as you can see in the slide in front of you, we have mainly 3 different options to manage the message. So, block the entire message. So, the message will be never delivered to the destination mailbox. So, will be blocked directly by the Exchange Online Protection System. First option. Second option is to delete all the potential dangerous attachment and use a default text alert, for example. And then the other option, the last option that we have, is delete all the attachment and use a custom alert text that you can write here. So this, you received a message from this specific address, the message has been removed and the attachment too because it was including potential virus or malware. So you will receive a custom message that the administrator need to define, to customize, and so on.
So
then
that the end user at least knows what happens.
Knows that the communication worked between the original server and my mailbox, but something in the Exchange Online Protection blocked the message, or better, the attachment, because the attachment was potentially a risk for the organization because it was not so clean or was potentially dangerous. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Then we have another option to notify the original sender. So we can decide to notify the internal sender about a potential issue with the message and notify also the external sender. This is up to you because we'll generate many messages inside and outside the organization because of all these notification. You can also decide to send a message, a notification to your administrator about this block. So for example, you are sending a message to me, this message is including some malware, for example. I can decide from this panel to send a notification to the Exchange Online Protection and the Exchange Online Administrator because potentially there is an issue with your PC, your desktop, because you are sending me a malware.
Yeah. Okay,
Makes
sense?
sense? Perfect. So as you know, options are many, but are also easy to be managed. Now we will talk about a different topic, so we will talk about management and reporting. For management and reporting, we will see together all the options available on the general main Office 365 portal to define anti-spam rule, policies and so on, but in particular reporting. So the new options that are now available in Office 365 Wave 15 to see the mail flow that is reaching our organization, inbound and outbound communication.
I'm interested to see what's.
It's interesting
what
because
report,
with report you can understand if there is something that is not working correctly also inside the organization. So one of these reports will be about spam that you are sending out from your organization. So you will be able to understand maybe why one of the IP addresses used by your organization is blacklisted now, just for example.
Okay.
So, as we said, we have now different reports that you can run on demand as an administrator, as an Exchange Online administrator, as also as an Office 365 administrator. And you can perform many reports about, for example, inbound spam filtering, so how many messages have been filtered by Exchange Online Protection. So, for example, in the slide in front of you, there is an example with some data. So, we see that in blue we have the content filter, in green we have the connection filter. on the orange one, the SMTP filter, and the latest one is the custom filter that the customer configured to block specific messages, just for example. Okay. And you can see also in the bottom part of the screen that we have also some additional information about the users that are receiving so many spam. So for example, here we have top 5 spam recipients inside our organization that are receiving spam. So for example, we have one user here that is called the user 2 that is receiving more than 100,000 emails with spam. It's a lot.
That's a lot.
So probably it's this user is under attack, for example. Let's see, for example, a different report here. In the slide in front of you, we have a different report about outbound malware detection summary. So using this report, we can understand if inside our organization there are one or more users that are sending out malware or virus outside the organization. This is important to know because there could be also a risk inside our organization, and we need to understand and solve the problem as soon as possible, because there is also a risk of data leakage, for example.
Exactly, yeah. So it can be that the specific user has a virus and is sending emails from his inbox out to some specific hacker server.
But the problem is that the virus could, for example, send email messages, but for example could also steal information, so password and sensitive information. So in this way we have a first warning about the fact that inside our organization there could be a problem. Okay. So we have another example here in this report. We can see here that in our organization we have 5 users, the top 5, that are receiving a lot of malware, and user 4 is really impacted by many malwares that are coming from outside the organization. So this is really important because you can do a sort of investigation to understand why this specific user has been impacted so much by outside the users that are located outside of the company, and is receiving a lot of malware and so on. This is important. We have also some information about the outbound filter, so we can understand if Exchange Online Protection is applying or not some rules to our emails that are sent out of the organization. So if the filter has been applied or not, when, how many messages, during a specific time frame, and so on. This is really interesting too. We have something new that we just included in Office 365 Wave 15, that is the Excel My Protection Report. This is something that you can download directly from the Office 365 portal, so the main interface of the portal, and will ask you to install a couple of components, so the .NET Framework 4.5, and a sort of add-in for Excel. You can use Excel at 32 or 64 bit, and you can run this report to get some interesting insights about your organization, about mail flow, about anti-spam, about malware, and so on. All in a simple report that you can run inside Excel.
So I can use this report, for example, to show my management what's happening in my organization.
And also to take some action, for example. So instead of running this report directly from the Office 365 portal, I can just download the report. I will show you that in a few seconds. Run the report, select the time frame that I'm interested to, and then get all this information and prepare a dashboard, for example, prepare a review, and take some action to maybe reduce the mail flow with potential dangerous items, change the configuration of my Exchange Online Protection, and so on. It's really, really interesting. Okay, so let's have a look to the Office 365 portal and have a look where we can download the tool. So just 1 second. 1 second. I'll move to the portal. Yep. Too many screens in front of me. So let's go to the main portal here, and then to the main one. So Office 365 main portal. Wait a few seconds. And then move to Reports, the new tab that we added with this release of Office 365 Wave 15. Click on Report, wait a few seconds, And as you can see in front of us, there are all the possible and potential reports that we can run for Exchange Online, for mail flow, for protection, data loss prevention, link, everything inside my organization.
A lot of reports already.
We started listening to our customers and partners, and we started adding many reports for Office 365. We are planning also to add additional reports in the future, so we are extending also this area. Okay, in the upper right area of the screen, as you can see, there is an option to download your report. If you click here in this area, Mail Protection Report, and you open a new tab, you will be redirected to a different page, Mail Protection Report for Office 365. From this area, you will be able to download the plugin for Excel, as we said, the two different versions, and run directly the report from Excel without logging on to the portal. So, for example, if we just resize the screen here, as you can see in front of you, there is my desktop, and there is also the plugin that I just installed, so Mail Protection here. So if I just double click on this new icon that I have on my screen, the program will fire up Excel. So I have Excel in front of me. I need to install and trust this specific component here. So it's just a matter of a few seconds. And then I need to click on Query, on the query button. To get access to the report related to a specific subscription, what I need to write here, to fill up here, is my username and my password for the Office 365 tenant. I need to provide here administrative credential. So for example, admin at, let's write here, my user name. Voila. So now the plugin will connect to Office 365 and will get all the data about my subscription for a specific time frame. So for example, the last 15 days, for example, the last month, the last 2 months, and so on. So for example, if I want to have the data about the last 2 months, for example, I can click here and wait a few seconds. As you can see, Excel with the plugin is now connecting to the reporting service inside Office 365 and is getting all this data. You can then analyze all this data using Excel, its services, but also all the tabs that are available directly on the spreadsheet. So we have information about the traffic, spam, malware, rules applied, data loss prevention, spam mail detail. As you can see, the plugin is getting all this kind of data. Usually it's quite fast, it's a matter of a couple of minutes, just to give you an idea. Probably the report that we are running now is just not so complete because this is a test tenant, a test subscription. But as you can see, we have many information, many graphs, and we can also filter all this information about on a specific date, for example. Now is refreshing the data, but as you can see in the right part of the screen, I can already start filtering all this information. So for example, see just the information related to the 24th of August, for example. The plugin finished to get all this information from Office 365, and now I can have a look to all this report. As you can see, we have the top 5 recipients that have been impacted by mail, for example, top senders inside my organization. Using this specific report here, for example, I can understand who inside my organization is sending out many messages. So for example, if he's sending out newsletter, for example, if his account has been hacked and now he's sending out virus, spam, and so on. This is quite useful and fast to be obtained, as you can see here. Okay.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's something also new, so worth to have a look to this report in particular. Then let's start talking about a different feature that we have in Office 365 Wave 15. This time we will talk about message tracing. This means that using this specific feature, we are now able to trace the route or the path of a specific message from inside our organization to a specific email address that is also located outside our organization.
Okay.
So for example, let's say that I'm Fulvio, I'm in the organization A. You are Roger, that you are in a different organization, so 2 different tenants of Office 365, or maybe I'm on Office 365 and you are on premises. And I want to know if the message that I just sent you has been delivered or not to your email server. Using this specific feature and tool, we are able to perform some self-test about mail flow and mail routing. What is important to know is that we will be able to know for sure if the message has been delivered to the destination server, but for example, we will not be able to understand what the destination server did with the message. So for example, I will be totally sure that the message has been technically delivered to your server, but maybe we don't know if that server used a specific rule or anti-spam system and the message in the end has been deleted or not.
It's blocked there.
Yeah, may happen, but in the end we are sure that the mail flow worked. Okay, let's try to have a look also to this tool here. Let me move back to the subscription. Voila. To access to this specific report, I just need to log on once again to the Exchange Online admin panel here. Wait a few seconds. Then check the area inside protection and mail flow. As you can see here, it's in mail flow, and I have message trace. With message trace, for example, I'll be able to identify what happened to a specific message that has been sent out from the admin, for example, during the last 3 hours, for example. So I can select admin here and then define that I want to check all the messages that have been sent out from my organization for this specific user in the last 48 hours. So user, time frame, and then click on search and wait a few seconds. As you can see here, we had just one message that has been sent out from this specific sender to this specific recipient with this specific subject. If I double click on this message, I can get additional information about the message. So for example, I know that the message has been sent out from the system at 8.56 and then has been delivered to the destination address correctly without any problem. So we know that Exchange Online has been able to reach the destination email address and also the destination server, the on-premise server. So the communication was okay. We don't know at this point if how the destination server handled the message and if the message has been delivered for sure to the destination mailbox for the spam policy, for the mail antivirus policy, custom policy on the destination server. As you can see here, the status is delivered.
So if I want to know this information, if I send a message and the recipient does not receive the message, I have to call my administrator to check this?
Not totally correct, because this option is also available inside OWA. So if I log on in my personal Outlook web app application, inside the option, I have the very same tool provided to all the users inside my organization, and without contacting the company administrator, I can get this report by myself.
Okay, so the differentiator is that if I log on with OWA, I can see only my messages,
Perfect.
and the administrator can see all the messages from the organization.
Correct, because the administrator has the wide vision of the company. Instead, I'm only allowed to have a look to my personal mailbox. This makes sense.
Good feature.
Yeah, it's interesting. Self-service is the key. Okay, let's go back to the presentation now. 1 second. And now we talk about the main differences between Exchange Online Protection and FOPI. As we know, Exchange Online Protection replaced FOPI in the latest version of Office 365. Mainly, we have 3 key differences between the two products. First, integration, because now Exchange Online Protection, as we said in the real beginning of this training, is totally integrated in the admin panel and in the Exchange administration panel. So now you can administer malware, antivirus, anti-spam, and custom rules directly inside the same architecture as Exchange Online. First difference. Second difference is the intelligent routing. With FOPI, we used in the past virtual domains. Now we are using the criteria-based routing. The latest and maybe most important difference between the two systems is that actually in Exchange Online Protection only the administrator can access to the quarantine and manage and release items. In the previous version with FOPI, the administrator but also some end users were able to access to the quarantine and manage the items that were quarantined, for example.
Okay, we discussed that, and it is hopefully coming soon.
Should be clear also now. Okay. Let's talk with the last part, in the last part of this training, about common issues and suggestions about how to use Exchange Online Protection and to manage the mail flow. Okay, let's talk now about bad sender and this specific issue. So,
what is a bad sender issue? I heard about that.
Yeah, it's a specific issue that is impacting some customers when some users inside the company are sending out so many messages during the day. So as you know, Exchange Online and Exchange Online Protection have particular limits in the number of messages that you can send out in a specific amount of time. So for example, in 24 hours, so let's say for example, from the 9 a.m. in the morning to the 9 a.m. in the morning the day after, you can send out up to 10,000 messages. So for example, a newsletter. If the number of messages that you are sending out is higher than 10,000, may happen that your account, your mail account, is blocked automatically by Exchange Online and Exchange Online Protection because could be, let's say, defined as a spammer. So a prevention inside the system block directly the account inside the company.
And how do I know that that happened?
We know that for two simple reasons. First of all, you notice that in Outlook. So in Outlook, you will not be able to send out any more messages, and you start receiving not delivery report by Outlook. So you're not allowed to send out messages because you're a bad sender now for the moment. The second situation is when you use OWA, Outlook Web App. In Outlook Web App, the situation is slightly different. So your messages will be saved in a different folder, in the draft folder, but are not sent out by the system. So you are still keeping the messaging, not losing them, but not sending out these messages. This is really, really important. Also because to unblock the situation and recover the full functionalities in Exchange Online Protection and Exchange Online, you need to contact the Microsoft support because as the account has been blocked, we need to unblock that specific account. What is important to know is that if you keep sending out messages once again, so the day after you send out 20,000 email outside your company, the account will be blocked again. So you need to be careful about the number of messages that you send out during a specific time frame. This is really important. Also because unblocking the account could require some hours for the support because you need to contact your partner or directly the Microsoft support and get the escalation to unblock the user. Another important issue that we are facing nowadays is related to blacklist. As Roger said during this training, we have different IP addresses pool that we are using to send out messages outside our company. May happen that one or more of these IP addresses will be inserted for error or for good reason inside a blacklist, for example, or a blacklist system. Backscatter is one of this system, for example. So may happen that one of the IPs used by Exchange Online Protection is included inside the backscatter system. This means that if the destination email server is using backscatter as a blacklist provider, for example, this on-premise email server will identify our messages as spam, for example. So what we can do? Well, almost nothing, because for the first reason, Microsoft is not supporting backscatter as a blacklist provider, for example. Second, because usually this issue will solve itself in a matter of hours and days. So the suggestion that we can provide to your customer is just wait, retry to send the message, or else if the message is really, really important, please contact the administrator of the destination server and ask to this administrator to create a rule on the destination server with the whitelist of our Exchange Online protection servers, IPs, or else at least the sender address. So we are sure that if we are creating a communication between Exchange Online and the on-premise server, the communication will flow because we'll bypass the blacklist system, at least for a specific domain, sender address, and so on. Does it make sense?
Makes sense.
This is really important because if you can imagine how many users we have in Exchange Online protection and so on, it's quite common that some users are abusing of the service and sending out email messages. This is to protect the whole organization, your organization, and also Microsoft.
Okay.
Well, I believe that it's all. Thank you for being here with me, Roger. It has been a pleasure to share and that you share your knowledge with all the audience here today. Thank you for the time you spent with us this hour more or less, and see you to the next training. Ciao.
Ciao.